This is Coach Aaron Saft and the MR Runningpains podcast. Today, I'm going to take a deep dive into analyzing my course preview of the Rim Runner course. Now, this kind of goes hand in hand with an episode that I did previously of how to analyze your long run, and that was episode 134. If you haven't listened to that one, maybe take a jump back and listen to it. It may help you in the future to analyze your long runs and see how they're going. This is kind of me picking apart how this went, my thoughts on it, how to move forward as this race is coming up April 1st, and I'll give you all the background information, all that. But first, I just wanted to talk about a few things. It's been a real struggle lately to get everything done. I listened to a podcast with Mario Frioli on the Dylan Bowman Free Trail podcast, and it really kind of struck a chord with me. Mario has recently stepped away from podcasting, and it's not to say that I'm going to step away, but it's just at the moment something's got to give. The track team that I'm coaching right now for outdoor is huge, and I'm going to help the middle schoolers as well. So we have a ton of kids and very few coaches. I'm trying to recruit some parental help. But aside from that, coaching my own athletes and trying to get in my own training, it's just a lot. And that's kind of why I stepped away from race directing. It's just there's so much going on, aside from my own personal life, and trying to be a good father and husband as well. It's tough. I ran, as I record this, it is the day after I ran this course preview, 25 miler in Tennessee. We got home last night at 9:00, and I still had to check in on some of my athletes. I was trying to get it done on the way home, but I was catching up on them from the weekend. I had over 400 notifications. So if you feel overwhelmed by looking at emails and seeing, a number of emails that you have to check, you know what it's like to see a notification of 400 plus things that you have to check in on, which is, through my own fault. Saturday, I spent my time with my family, and we traveled to Tennessee. I watched my son's basketball game, and then we traveled to Tennessee. Sunday, I spent most of the day running, which we'll talk about, and then traveling back. It's a 4.5-hour drive. So, like I said, I tried to use my time effectively, but I didn't get done. So anyhow, got home and, had to unpack and all that. So it was just a little bit crazy, as you all know what that's like. So found myself waking up at 5 a.m. this morning to go get in my shakeout run. It's just when I had time, due to the rest of the day. I had the treadmill guy coming at 9:00, so I had to be home, after dropping my son off at school. And in grocery shopping, I had to race home to meet the treadmill guy, which, is just had to be here so he could get in. And then work on scheduling for my athletes. I had some scheduled calls with some of the athletes, and squeezing this podcast in because I'm about to head off to practice. So, and then we have our parent meeting tonight for the track meet. Come home, got to cook dinner and get that all ready for the family. And then check on my athletes again and try to get some sleep. So my days are packed, that is to say, and I don't want to sacrifice the quality of this podcast, which is, what I'm fearing. It's tough to, prepare. I had to write the notes down for this, obviously record it, then I've got to go and get it ready to be released. So there's just, there is a lot to it, and right now, my time is a premium as I try to maintain my training, and my training is only going to increase from here. Thankfully, I'm on a down week training wise, but I just don't know where that's going to be, moving forward. I've reached out to a few people to try to line them up, but I may have to just kind of take a break from the podcast while I get through this summer and the training that involves, but we'll see. I put that out there, and that's to say, I'm not sure. It's kind of up in the air right now as to what to do. So I sincerely appreciate your feedback. I really do. It keeps me wanting to do this. When I see people sharing it, it makes me feel so much joy, and it's worth it. So I try to remind myself of those things and the time sacrifice that it takes to get this out there. So plus the Patreon support, that's always a big takeaway, that I feel like I don't want to let those folks down because they are choosing to support me. Not to say I can't pause that, but there's just so many things going in my head. It was a great podcast, and it really got me thinking. I may have to really take a step away from the newsletter for a little bit. That may be the first thing to go. Mario was the opposite way. He said that the newsletter couldn't go, whereas I feel like I did not do my last newsletter justice. I felt like I rushed the articles. I didn't put out the content that I really wanted to. The quality I felt was just lower, and I don't like that. My expectations are to put out quality information for all of you, and I didn't feel like I do it. So I probably will take a step away from the newsletter for a little bit, and try to focus my energies on the podcast, and just make sure that I get a quality podcast out to your ears each week. I've reached out to an athletic trainer to see if she would assist me in doing an episode on taping the feet. I had a request to do a video and podcast about taping the feet. So I'm working on that, trying to line somebody up to get that done. So really appreciate that suggestion, Sam. So all that to say, I'm really working through a lot of this right now and trying to figure out, what time do I have? So, because, going away this weekend kind of made me realize that, my commitments to training, getting through the Grand Slam healthy is a huge priority for me. And I think we all know what that's like, to have a huge goal in front of you and want to make sure that you do adequate preparation and training, and still have a family life and enjoy your life at the same time. So I'm thinking on it. I'm going to keep ruminating and kind of pondering, especially with putting the newsletter aside for a little while. I suspect that, hopefully free me up a little bit more to focus on the other things here. But all that to say, yesterday, that was February 19th, I ran at Franklin State Park. It is host to the Rim Runner races. There is a marathon, there is a 50-miler, and there is a 100-miler. I will be running the 50-miler as my qualification for Vermont 100. I need to run a 50-miler or longer in a certain amount of time in order to qualify for Vermont. They do not accept a 200-miler as a qualifier, and that was the only thing that I had done last year. So I am racing this Rim Runner 50-miler not only as a qualifier for Vermont, but also in preps for the Western States 100. It fits well in the timing on April 1st for Western States, so I'm excited by it. It's not a very difficult course in regards to elevation gain. So the 25-mile loop that I did yesterday had about 2,700 feet of gain. So, for 50 miles, we're talking 5,400 feet of gain, which isn't much. It's a beautiful course. I really enjoyed it. Yeah, when they say rim runner, for sure. You ran around the rim of this valley. It was gorgeous. Such spectacular views throughout the course. I really enjoyed that aspect of it. It really is a beautiful course. I had never run there before. Again, it was, I went into that blind, and that's why I went, to see it, to understand what I was getting into. Fit well into the schedule, into my training schedule. It was the longest run I've done to date in this training cycle. So prior to that, I'd had one 22-mile run, and this being a 25-mile run was my longest. So training's been going really well up to this point, knock on wood. I'm not feeling fatigue. Legs actually felt really good on the shakeout this morning. I went super slow. Those of you who've been listening to the podcast know that I've been really being diligent about running nice and easy on my recovery days. Now, nice and easy today, my average heart rate, my average active heart rate during my run today was 96, zone 1. Super, super easy. Legs felt fine, body felt fine, but this is what's helping me recover. Listened to a great podcast yesterday, and I'll try to put that in there as well. The Running Rogue podcast, last week's episode, had some great reminders, and he talks about keeping your easy days easy, and really I focused on that. Listened to some great podcasts yesterday, and they were all pointing to what I was doing. I really, aside from the fact, and I made note of this, that it distracted me, and I'll talk about that in a bit. Again, the course is 25-mile laps. And roughly 2,700 feet of elevation gain. But yesterday, what we found, my wife started with me and did roughly 3-4 miles with me to start. It was so slow going. The course was extremely wet. There is horse traffic that goes through, so the ground was really rough because of the horses and other users. It was very broken up, if you will, lots of hoof marks, and it just was very chewed up, aside from being very wet, because when you start, there's so many creek crossings almost right away, and it's just very marshy, very muddy. So it's going to be an interesting start if that doesn't dry out by race day. We still have a little over a month and a half to race day, but definitely a concern. The other concern was the leaves. The leaves that were on the rest of the course were quite deep. You couldn't see rocks and roots. I did turn my bad ankle once yesterday. That was one of my huge concerns about, going out yesterday was turning my ankle. Thankfully, it wasn't bad. No remnants of that today. So ankle was okay. I did fall once, took a good, dive. I knew I wasn't going to catch myself, so I just looked for a safe place to land and kind of rolled. Was fine. But, it's the leaves were, they were fluffy. So I'm hoping that they are a little bit more well-trodden on race day. But it took me roughly 5 hours to complete the 25-mile lap, and that was due to a number of reasons, and I'll get into that here in a little bit. And as I said, it was muddy, and then throughout the course, there were a number of water crossings. I was really surprised by how many creek crossings, because being up on a rim, I guess water's got to go someplace, but lots of creek crossings. The other part of this was it was super confusing, and that's what really slowed me down the most. I had the map downloaded to my Gaia app so I could, see where I was moving and making sure that I stayed on the trail. But there were so many user trails. There was horse user trails, there was ATV trails. So you kind of pop out, and there'd just be this spider web, and you had to look for the blaze or the trail marker to kind of follow where the trail was going. So I had to stop a number of times just to make sure I was on course, to look at if I had a turn. I was really I just had to stop so much. So that really slowed me down a lot. There's a few times where I'd just be running, and all of a sudden the trail would just end, and I was like, what just happened? And I'd look around, and the trail would be off to my right about 100 yards through the woods. I was like, how did I get how did I miss the turn? It was just, there was a ton of blowdowns, so trees everywhere, so it made it very difficult and slow going. So if I lived closer, I would love to do some trail work out there. And I was listening to the Trail Trash podcast, and they were talking about volunteering and doing trail work and stuff like that, and got me really thinking, if I lived closer, or maybe just designated a weekend to help the race organizers go out there and just devote a day to doing some trail work out there, because a lot of these blowdowns they made you miss the trail. It was at very inopportune times where the trail would turn, and it just looked like the trail kept going straight. And, so it really, like I said, just slowed me down. I'm not complaining about that. It's just the way the weather is right now. I know it's the end of winter, so not many people have got out there to do trail work. And like I said, I would love to help out. So I may reach out to the organizers and just see if there's a weekend I can get away and help them do some trail clearing to make it better for race day. And of course, there's going to be trail markers on race day, so I won't have to be as cognizant about, finding the route on my phone. all that to say, it made it it made it very interesting. The course itself has some great aid stations in regards to the spacing of the aid stations. So from the start to the first aid station is 5.5 miles. Then you've got another 5.3 miles until the next aid station 2, in which they'll have a drop bag. And I'm going to talk about how I'm going to make use of the drop bag. Then you've got 7.6 miles until they call it the champion aid station, and that's at 18.4 miles into the race, and that's where I can see my crew. You do a loop, which it was a nice loop, and that's roughly 3 miles, and you're back at the champion aid station, where again you can see your crew, and that's 21.3 miles, and then basically you've got it 3 miles to the finish. Which is just over 25 miles, which you can see your crew obviously again. So I'm going to talk about how I'm going to make use of the drop bag and the crew, as I said. But nice spacing, 5.5, 5.3, 7.6, 2.9, and 3.8 miles to the finish, in which then you just do it all over again. Takeaways. I'm going to start with the positives here. The takeaways for this course. I got to see the course. That was a tremendous asset. That was the purpose of it. That's why I went, not only to get the long run, but to see the course, understand what I'm getting into. It was a great training run. Like I said, this is the furthest I've gone just yet. And then it also helped me figure out what I need, or what I need to think more on. What decisions do I need to make so far as gear goes? My wife got to know the area for crewing. She got to get to know the roadways and how to get around in that area. And lastly, I'm not injured, sore, or fatigued, as I mentioned. That is a huge takeaway, huge positive. The negatives, and I'm going to kind of expound on these. I did not have a positive experience. I did not get a positive, impression of the course, mostly due to navigation errors, how much time I had to spend navigating and finding the trail and getting back on the trail. Literally, I was just walking through the woods sometimes to get back on the trail. It was, sometimes it would be frustrating. I'm sure people have experienced something similar. I was in a negative headspace because of how frustrated I was by trying to stay on course. The other negative was my footwear choice, and I'm going to talk a lot more about the footwear here. I just did not have the right shoes for this course, and that was tough because I was uncomfortable for most of the run due to that choice. So those are my takeaways, positive and negative. Again, I'm going to expound on some of these. And then I took some notes for race day planning. Where we stayed was about 30 minutes away from the start. That's pretty much the closest hotel, we're staying at to get to the race. Interestingly enough, this was just over the line for the Central Standard Time Zone. So we were an hour back from our Eastern Standard Time, which, we didn't realize until we drove to the hotel and our clocks all of a sudden went back an hour. And so that was interesting because it was, much lighter earlier in the morning when we looked at the sunrise. We were still in Chattanooga, which is Eastern Standard Time, and it said about 7:15ish a.m. And then, going over the line, since it's right there, it was 6:15 a.m. when it was brighter. So it was good to note. As I said, this race has a number of races going on. The 50-miler starts at 6 a.m. So again, thinking into the future, I probably will not need a headlamp for the start, which is great. I don't have one less thing to worry about. So 6 a.m. start. The 100-miler starts at 6:05, so they start after us, and then the marathon is not till Sunday. So we should be the first people on the course and running through the course. It's April 1st, so potentially and most likely it will be a lot warmer than it was yesterday. I believe the high yesterday was about 56, which was extremely pleasant. I just had a long sleeve technical shirt, and it was great. I did not get too hot. I pulled the sleeves up, but I wasn't sweating or too hot, so dressed really appropriately. But it could be a lot warmer, so something to think about so far as choosing gear and what I'm going to wear. Another race day planning, and I'm going to kind of tweak this as I get into training and see how I'm feeling. But I wanted to kind of start thinking about my pacing strategy. Since this is a 2-loop course, I feel pretty confident. I did not have the greatest day yesterday. I did not feel peppy yesterday. We didn't taper for this or anything. We just went into it as a regular long run. So, but my legs were not as fresh as they would be hopefully on race day. So I'm figuring on starting that first loop somewhere around what I did yesterday, potentially 4 hours and 45 minutes to 5 hours for the first loop. And then, hopefully I can give it the same effort and come in somewhere around 5 hours for the second loop. Love to be, 10 hours or just under 10 hours for this race would be perfect for me. And then as I talked about earlier, I am not going to wear headphones. I was distracted. It took my mind off the trail too many times, and I think that's why I found myself in the middle of woods a number of times, because I just wasn't paying attention. I just thought I was following the trail, and all of a sudden I would just find myself, standing in the middle of the woods, nowhere near the trail. So no headphones, because I want to be a little bit more alert and focused on the course markings and what's going around me. We'll see on that second lap. Again, hopefully the leaves will be a little bit more trodden, after 2 races have gone through a lap, so you can kind of see where the trail goes. So we shall see. But those are my notes for race day planning. I'm going to talk a little bit more about nutrition and hydration a little bit later, so we'll get into that. But let's get into gear. My thoughts on gear. So I talked about my footwear and how I did not pick the right pair. I used the Altra Olympus, thinking it would save my legs a bit from the distance. I'd feel a little bit fresher today, which I do. I think, but I think I chose too much cushion, due to the wetness in the terrain. They were just too heavy. I just felt like, I wasn't nimble enough on the trail, in comparison to what I'm usually used to on a course like this. I'm thinking I would probably do well with something like the Lone Peak or the new Trail Fly, the Innovate Trail Fly. It's the 270, I believe. I think one of those two will probably be my race day choice. So we'll see. I'm going to use them a little bit more in training in order to determine, which one to use. Pack. So yesterday I used the Solomon Advanced Skin 12 with a 2-liter bladder. I did this, unsupported. So I ran a 25-mile loop unsupported. So I needed a large capacity. On race day, I suspect I can get away with something like the Ultra Aspire Revolt vest, which is now the Basham. They call it the race vest, the Basham race vest. So I use the Revolt. It's the older version. It's got a little bit more extension to it. They came out with a long version, so it goes down my back a little further since I'm taller. So I think I'm going to use the Revolt and then carry 2 flasks. And then I'll have 4 bottles ready to go with the Highly hydration mix. That's Highly, I believe that's how you pronounce it, is formerly known as Long Haul Nutrition. That's what I've been using since Bigfoot. I'll just have the mix in them, and then the aid stations can just fill them up with water. And that way I can grab 2 new flasks at that the 10.8 mile aid station where the drop bag is. So that's my plan there. And then I can grab new bottles, or a new bottle, because I really won't need much towards the end, since the aid stations are so close together. But when I see them at Champion, I can grab 1 bottle from them and go a little bit lighter. So I have 1 bottle at 18. I'll probably drink that, and then 1 bottle at 21, which will take me to the finish. And then at the finish, I'll see them again, and I can grab 2 new bottles to get me through to the 10.8 mile aid station, where again I'll hit my drop bag and grab 2 new bottles and keep going. So that's my plan. Use a little bit more minimal pack, and I'll probably carry with me the filter just in case I need to filter some water and have a little bit more fluids in case it's a hot day. We'll also look at the temperature. If it's looking hot, I may switch up to the Ultra Aspire Bronco vest. Truth be told, oh goodness, Usway is actually sending me some new packs. I think I mentioned this previously. I haven't received them yet. I see a lot of others already have theirs, but it may be an option. They sent it to us to see if we'd like them and want to come on board with Usway as one of their athletes. So. Stay tuned for that. I'm not sure just yet. That's something that could be in the works. I'm hoping that it is a good option, but if not, we shall see. But that's what's happening right now. The other thing, gear-wise, socks. I use the CEP long sock, their Run 3.0. Strangely enough, I missed my my Exo skins. The Exo toes that I usually wear. I usually wear the Crew Exo toes when I'm out running. The CEPs just seem to stay wet and they squeeze my toes. I didn't really appreciate how my toes felt, obviously being wet the whole time and being kind of compressed. So I'm definitely going to switch back to my Exo toes for race day. So, but other than that, I think that's kind of, my gear going forward. My kit, I always use the Rabbit FKT 7-inch shorts. Really enjoy those. And I usually wear a Patagonia t-shirt. I've got two different ones depending on, how hot it is. But that's kind of what I'll go with. And then so far as nutrition and hydration goes, I think my nutrition was pretty on point. I had 1,000 calories from food and 700 calories from my fluids. So I had 1,700 calories total for a 5-hour run. So I was very pleased with this. I stayed on about a 40-minute interval, alternating fructose-based fuel with glucose-based fuels. So the first 40 minutes I'd have my awesome sauce, my spring awesome sauce, and then the second 40 minutes I had either Goo Roctane Gel, a Snickers bar, or the Power Bar Chews. So just kept alternating back and forth between awesome sauce and one of those other fuel sources. So really happy with the way it went. I did drink the full 2 liters. I was completely empty by the time I reached my car. I do feel like I probably could have drunk a little bit more. Again, I used the Highlight Hydration, so it did have electrolytes as well as calories, and my energy levels were fine. I give myself an A+ on nutrition. I never was really thirsty, but I believe I could have drank more, so I give myself a B+ on my hydration. So probably could have stopped and filled up my filter and drank a little bit more water towards the end there. But overall, I'm very pleased with how I did. Final thoughts. So I have to remember, that race day is a separate experience. The course is going to be marked. Hopefully I won't have to pay much attention to the route. I can kind of just see flagging or arrows and follow. So I have to clear my mind of any negative thoughts or things that I experienced yesterday, because April 1st is a totally different day, and I need to just put it behind me. Like I said, it wasn't the greatest day yesterday. I stayed in it. I stayed. I was fine. I wasn't upset. I wasn't gloomy. I wasn't I wasn't in a negative space. I could tell it wasn't my greatest day. I'll put it that way. But I need to put all that behind me and look forward to April 1st and the opportunity to do this race. Other things, I can't get caught up in anyone else's race until at least 50K into the race, whether I'm leading or if I'm chasing. I need to stick to my race plan, run that first lap super easy, and save my legs for the second lap, no matter what's going on. I have to run smart, I have to run my effort, and I have to have fun. I have to remember those things. Those are the key components. Run smart, run my effort, and have fun. That's my goal. That's my goal. Then lastly, use other shoes and the pack I'm thinking of using in my long runs leading up to the race, so that I'm sure that I'm comfortable with them. I tend to be a creature of habit. I tend to, throw on the Advanced Skin 12 and just go out for a long run. What I probably should do is, set up a loop or an out and back that's shorter and use my car as an aid station and just kind of go out, run with the pack that I'm suspecting I might use, and carry the amount of fluid that I'm thinking will be acceptable for race day, and just see how it goes. See if I like that again, and try the different shoes and making sure that they work. So those are my final thoughts. Overall, like I said, I took away a lot from this. It was a great learning experience. I feel confident that I know the course pretty well. I know a lot more about what I should use, and it was great. Now, we can't all do something like this, right? We can't all go see a course that we're racing on. Obviously, it's hard to see. Perhaps you can see portions of it if you're lucky enough to live local to the race you're doing, or if it's short enough that you can see the course. But the point being is that you have to go back and analyze. As I said, check out that episode 134, my previous episode on analyzing the long run. You can take a lot away from your long runs, learn a lot more, analyze your gear, analyze how your nutrition went. I really appreciate that Carmichael Training System, CTS, they do a nutrition and hydration report card. I've started using that with my athletes to see how things went, to hear more about how did they do their nutrition? How did that go? What kind of intervals did they use? What did they like? What didn't they like? Did they get enough hydration? So these are all things that we're working through. So I suggest you do the same, because this is, it's a vital piece. Whether you're running the marathon or further, nutrition and hydration is vital. So you should be analyzing that as well as your gear. How is your footwear going? How is that working for you? How is the shorts you intend on racing on? Do they rub you anywhere? These are all the good things to think about. So please, consider those. And if you have questions, reach out. Rim Runner again is April 1st. It is on Ultra sign up. It'd be awesome. I already got some notes on Strava about people that have done it or are racing themselves, which is awesome. I look forward to meeting some of you. Please come see me on race day. Say hey. I really appreciate everybody, and I thank you for listening. And until next time, keep running, my friends.